is that to everyone, I guess we will get started. Today is quite a lovely day. I'm very happy to be here for a number of reasons. One, because the manager, Mary McNamara, of our office, the New Brunswick DVR office, asked me to come out to represent the office. I'm very pleased to be here. And secondly, I'm so pleased that the weather turned out to be as lovely as it is. I was just telling the young lady, at one point I thought I was going to have to put a canoe with oars on order, but thank God I didn't have to. It was what, eight days straight? 8 days straight, okay. All right, it looks like we're going to be a small group this afternoon. What I would like to do is get started, but first by asking each one of you to introduce yourselves briefly. Tell me a little bit about yourself and what brings you here. We'll start with the beautiful young lady in the back.
7 years in meningioma, and I'm just here for some information.
About employment? Okay, thank you, welcome. And you are?
My name is Steve. I'm supporting Joyce here. And she had her surgery, was back in this past April.
Okay.
She came back with flying colors.
She looks great, okay.
I want to understand more about it.
Okay, all righty.
Hi, my name is Joyce.
Okay.
I had meningioma. I had my surgery in April, and the topic seemed very interesting to me about not only going back to work, the vocational end of it, and also getting back into life.
Okay.
And I would just like to hear a little bit about it.
What we do, okay. Thank you, okay. This young lady?
Kamala, my brother has glioblastoma, hasn't been working since his surgery in June, and is thinking about going back, so I just want to learn for him.
Okay.
I'm Laura Bassi. I'm a hospice nurse.
Okay.
And it's a question that's asked a lot of times, not necessarily from the patient, but from the family. So the insights from other people are real helpful for me for my patients.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
My name's Richard. I had two meningiomas, one 8 years ago and a reoccurrence this May. And I'm retired. I feel great.
Okay.
And in case I reincarnate and need a job again, I'm here to learn something no matter what.
Okay, thank you. Welcome. Okay. I'm going to basically introduce myself to you all. My name is Mary Anderson. I am a senior vocational counselor with the New Brunswick DVR office, and we basically help people who have disabilities get jobs. So what I'm going to do is this morning, I'm going to, right now, not this morning, this afternoon, I'm going to distribute our brochures, and I'm going to go through them with you and tell you a little bit about what we do. Is actually for professional people, but we're going to use it anyway. So you might want to share it with your doctor or your treatment providers. And it's very helpful for you. I'll give you several because you are a professional nurse. So we're going to go through this and very quickly and briefly, and then I'm going to just tell you what you will do, what you will encounter if you came into the office to meet me. Thank you. Again, I'm Mary Anderson. I have a master's in the field of vocational rehabilitation counseling. I am also a certified vocational rehab counselor. And I work with people. We work with people from all walks of life, regardless of the disability, to help them find jobs. We actually begin with them actually in high school. We start transition services with students who are in high school. We start providing them with technical consultation at the age of 14, but we really don't step in providing services to them until they leave high school or they become adults. So we start really with high school students. After then, we start with, we basically work with adults. So if you would just open the brochure that I gave you, I chose not to put this on PowerPoint because, as the presenter was saying next door, when you go to these presentations, there's always something that goes wrong with that PowerPoint presentation. And also it kind of takes away from interacting with the audience a little bit. So I prefer to let the human element remain, because I think when people come to a workshop or a seminar of this type, you know, they need to see a human professional. I think so, as opposed to a PowerPoint. I think PowerPoint is wonderful, though. It does have its point. But if you would look, as you will see, The first part of the brochure really talks to the professional person. Basically, we're assuming that your health or your loved ones are basically stabilized and they're ready to move back to work. So if you speak to your doctors, your treatment providers, what they can do is basically phone it in to us, and with the medical information, send us your medical records to kind of expedite services to you. So it's really, that part is just addressed to the professionals. If you look down, it says, what is vocational rehabilitation? The New Jersey Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services provides services that enable individuals with disabilities to find jobs. We also offer assistance to people with disabilities who are having problems keeping jobs. So yes, you are a group that has disabilities, but there are countless disability groups that we serve. But we specifically serve you also. Who qualifies for the services? Any adult, pretty much, who has a job or who is out of work and need assistance in getting back to work. Very often people who have brain injuries or tumors, a lot of times, sometimes they can return to work doing what they used to do, and then sometimes they cannot. You get together with your counselor, whoever that counselor is, to decide what it is that you want to do. But there must be some type of impediment. There are some people who come in with a disability. They don't necessarily have they don't meet our criteria for services, but there must be an impediment. Let's say if you were an accountant and you have problems with memory, you're having problems with multiple tasks, that is an impediment to employment, and we can basically work with you to come up with another line of work for you. Also, what services do we provide? If you will look in the center here, we provide diagnostic services. Let's say you have, it's been a while since you had your surgery, and maybe you never had a neuropsychological. Well, we as an agency, we provide the funding. We will send you to a neuropsychologist to pretty much get an update as to how to move forward with you. We use that in addition to whatever your doctor or your treatment providers send to us. We provide you with individual vocational counseling and guidance. Many people come to us highly educated, and yes, they do have an impediment to employment. We work with them to, just the two of us, to come up with a plan where they can basically get back to work. We provide job seeking skills. If you're at work, once we help you get back to work, we also do follow-up services. We do post-employment service. Let's say once you get out there and your case is closed and you start encountering problems on the job, we also help you with that. Sometimes people need physical restoration services, sometimes assistive technology. Once in a while we get people who might need a wheelchair. We get people sometimes who are quadriplegics and they have purchased a van and they need us to help them modify that van. Those are the kinds of things that we do. Sometimes people need hearing aids. We provide that. Sometimes people need glasses. We provide them with the type of services that they need to get back to work. Sometimes people need physical therapy. Sometimes they need cognitive therapy. Those are the kinds of things that we sponsor, if it means to help, that this is what you need to get back to work and to basically stay employed. We also provide job coaching services. We call that basically supported employment. Some people come in and they lack the skills and the behaviors necessary to find employment. What we do is we pay a vendor who specializes in employment with that particular group. They go out into the community with the businesses and try to find employment. And upon finding that person employment, they generally stay long enough to make sure that person stays in that job and settles in that job, and they run problem-solving activities, if any should arise, to make sure that that person be able to maintain that job. And I think this is about all that we do. And so now I want to just tell you, everything is basically confidential. It doesn't matter what part of New Jersey that you live. If you will notice on the back here, we have 19 DVR offices in the state of New Jersey. If you live in Monmouth County, there's an office for that. If you live in Middlesex County, there is an office for that. So we have offices throughout the state of New Jersey for your convenience. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, now that I have given you a basic overview of what it is we do, this is really basically how it works every day. I'm going to make it very simple for you. The process gets started with a phone call from you, your loved ones, or your treatment providers. It comes into our offices. The receptionist, the great thing about DVR is you will never call and get a voicemail during working hours. At the end of the business day, no one answers the phone. There's not a voicemail. You're not going to get someone's voicemail. Push 1, push 2. That is fabulous. I'm so grateful. We have excellent customer service policies and procedures in place. You're going to call and you're going to get a receptionist or a secretary to receive your call. That person is going to take your name, the address, person's social security number, their disability, and that referral goes directly to the supervisor. The person who is being referred will be assigned to a counselor. That counselor may very well be me. You will get a letter from me in less than 14 days with an appointment to come in to see me. It will tell you what to bring. It will tell you how to get there. But if you cannot keep that appointment, you can always call and basically reschedule. The day that you come in, we basically have the intake interview. I get a better sense of what your needs are and what your expectations are and what I can do to basically help you. Give you a better understanding of what kind of services we can help you, provide you to get back to your job. The state and federal government gives us 60 days to get all the diagnostic information on you that we need. We rely on diagnostic information very heavily because we work with people who have disabilities. And we want to ensure that we don't put you in a job that will cause you more harm or make you lose the gains that you already have. So after those 60 days, or before the 60 days, you're going to get a letter telling us that you have been certified, and we do that based on your medical records. You're going to be getting a letter from us telling you that you are Category 1, Category 2, or Category 3, which means 1 is the most serious category, and they are the ones who receive services first. Now, the only other person who might get services before you is a Category 1 who came in before you. After that, you and your counselor, who may be me, we will basically sit down and come up with a plan of services based on the diagnostic information and the information that you have. We look at your interests also. Now, once in a while, for me in particular, I rely very heavily on neuropsychologicals and sometimes psychological evaluations, not because I'm looking for mental health issues or anything like that. Basically, it gives me a sense of your level of academic and intellectual functioning. It also tells me about what your interests are, what your abilities are. Let's say you can no longer do accounting. Well, then that psychological is going to show other options for you. It looks at your strengths and make recommendations based on your strengths and your interests. So we basically work with that psychological.
Do you mean the psychological testing you do?
We actually we have a psychologist do that. That comes under the diagnostic information. A lot of times if you come in and if your test results are more than 3 years old, we basically will send you for another psychological to get more current information before we go into a plan.
Where else would?
Sometimes if you, because you had a surgery, the hospital, JFK Neuroscience Institute, you might have your own private neuropsychologist that did testing a couple of months ago. You never had that? Okay. Well, if you came in for services and want to get back to work, in all likelihood, we would do a neuropsychological on you to get a sense of your cognitive functioning and what you would need. Some people come in, they might need, if there are memory problems, they may need cognitive remediation services. Sometimes we send you for a 20-day pre-vocational cognitive evaluation. And that's basically done at Hartwick, JFK Center for Head Injuries. They're one vendor, actually the only vendor in many instances that we work with. But they will do that, look at you for 20 days and basically come up with recommendations of the services that you need to get to work or to maintain your current work. Sometimes they recommend what they call cognitive remediation, where you learn compensatory strategies and techniques to compensate for any cognitive deficits that you may have. So there are basically two kinds of services that we provide. What we call no-cost services. Many of the services that I talked to you about a few moments ago. The diagnostic testing, that's considered a no-cost service. Supported employment, that's considered a no-cost service. Counseling and guidance is considered a no-cost service. And then the next category is what we call cost services. That has to do with training, college, if you need any type of assistive technology, assistive devices, that falls into the category of cost services. And you're probably saying, well, what's the difference? Finances is what makes the difference. You can be a millionaire and come in and get services, the diagnostic services. It doesn't matter what your income is, the agency will pay for those services. But let's say if you decide that you need retraining, you need to go back to school to get some new skills, or you need to develop you need training to change careers. Well, then we basically look at your income. So your family income is very important. For instance, like let's say if you come in a family of one, and you gross more than $525 a week, and you want to go to college, there is a possibility that you may have to pay for it, or you may have to basically pay a part of it. You and I will sit down together and we will look for resources in the community. We encourage everyone to apply for financial aid, the Pell Grant, TAG, those kinds of things. So basically this is what we do. When you get to that stage, we're moving into what we call a plan. And it's a contract. It tells you what your responsibilities are, and it spells out what our responsibilities are to get you back to work and hopefully help you maintain that employment. And you can call me anytime that you feel that you need to. But most of the time when we get you into a plan, most people are pretty much set. They don't really call that much unless there is some type of problem or something happens where their education or training has to be interrupted. Then they basically call. Okay. Any questions?
If a big part of your problem is memory, concentration, then how do they work with that as far as schooling? That's part of the problem with working. That's also part of the problem with training, with schooling. How would that be worked with?
Oh, this is why sometimes a recent neuropsychological is so important, because they pretty much provide the two of us direction. It pretty much tells, the neuropsychologist will help you understand if schooling is for you, if you need schooling, or if you need to change, careers, if you need to kind of modify your work, what it is that you do. In other words, some people, their cognitive deficits are such that schooling may not be recommended. So we might look at some other skills that you have. We might look at what type of transferable skills that you have left and try to find a new line of employment for you. It depends upon the depth of your deficits, and it depends upon what the neuropsychologist recommends, because that's a very good question, and that's a very critical question, because a lot of people don't understand. If they were, say, working in something like very detailed like accounting, and they have memory problems, the work environment is so fast-paced that is really not good or wise to continue in that particular field. But you and I, say if you came in, you and I would sit together and work out a plan to hopefully make you happy. Find some work that you would be happy doing.
Because then they also wouldn't be happy going to something so lesser than what that person had been doing, to the point where, you know what I'm saying? You know, if this person was an accountant, he wouldn't be happy now going to the point where all he did is stuffed envelopes all day.
Exactly.
So, you know, okay, the memory is no longer there. You know, she can no longer do the accounting position, but nor will this person be happy just, okay, well then you can just put the checks in the envelopes and mail them out.
Exactly.
So
we look for options. This is the whole purpose of the neuropsychological and the psychological. We look for alternative career options for you and basically sit down together and basically work that through.
I've just been curious about that, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah. Sometimes it's better maybe to get started on a small scale, to get back, build up your mental and physical stamina before you jump into something that's really serious and basically high stress, and kind of monitor yourself along the way and see basically where it leads. And this is the whole purpose of having a counselor who will sit and work with you and give you the support that you need. Okay.
Sometimes the two going backwards too much.
I understand.
It's very frustrating. And too many steps backwards. You know
I understand.
What I mean?
I understand what you're saying.
This is it. This is all I can do now.
Okay.
And that's very bad for the morale.
Okay.
You know, and those are what people think of.
Okay. Well, we have.
You know what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. We have people who have brain injury and with memory problems. Some people are able to go back to their old jobs. It depends upon the severity of the tumor or the surgery or the stroke. And then we have some people who go into new lines of employment. Some people return for retraining. And then some people decide not to continue with employment for the reason that you are saying. After a while, they feel that the job that they're being referred to is so menial that they don't continue the process. So, but my recommendation is to continue work with your counselor and see what you can come up with.
You say this is confidential.
Yes.
If somebody's considering pursuing Social Security disability, would you recommend that they not start a process with you? Like, eventually they might like to go back to work. They don't know if they could work. You know, and Social Security disability is very tricky. Should they not start with your services until that's resolved? Or if this truly confidential, that if you said they could go back to work, is that going to jeopardize Social Security?
We can't say that you can or cannot go back to work. It has to be a doctor to basically say that. I think we deal with an issue like that on a case-by-case basis. As a counselor, everything is confidential. We cannot release anything to Social Security without your written permission. It is really confidential. The only thing that can override that would be a court order. And it is strictly confidential. But if you are applying because they're going to ask you, more than likely, if you have a case with DBR.
Okay.
So as your counselor, I would recommend that you not open a case to apply for your Social Security and see what happens, first. But we cannot release any information to anyone without your written permission. We can't discuss it with anyone.
If you're going for SSI, you can't. That would be like double dipping because you're getting paid from a job and then you're collecting SSI also.
Okay.
You can earn a certain
Yes, you can.
Well, a minimum.
Yeah.
Well, he can't work full time.
Yeah, he can work part-time.
He can work part time.
Yeah, there's an SGA amount that a person can earn.
Which psychologically would be good for him, but he can't work full time, so he needs the disability.
Okay.
So, but you're saying you would suggest not opening this yet?
If he's in the process of applying, you want to basically get that. You just don't want to take a chance to sabotage yourself in any way. And take care of that first, and then after you're settled and you feel that the doctor feels that you're medically cleared, or he's medically cleared to begin work or some vocational activity, then I would recommend. But we don't say no. You can come in and open a case at any time, and you have a right to close it at any time. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Is your group tied in with organizations whereby after you've interviewed people or what have you, that you assist them in finding a job, or call a company and say, I have a person here I think might be suitable for your organization, or are they strictly on their own in terms of looking for a job?
That is basically, sometimes a person might need what we call supported employment. And what we do is once they're in a plan, we refer them to supported employment vendors in the community. The agency pays for that, and that particular vendor will assign the individual a job coach and a job developer. And the job coach and developer, based on the plan that the person developed with me or the agency, that job developer will take that plan in hand and try to find the individual a job as outlined in that plan of services for the person.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Where do you get your monies from?
It's a very good question. The bulk of our money comes from the federal government. The bulk of it comes from the federal government, and the state supply a portion, but the bulk of it comes from the federal government. And by the way, DVR, the wonderful thing about DVR is if a person comes in, whether they get a job and they are successful in it, or whether they choose to close their case next month, you can always come back at any time, reopen a case, and reapply for services. Sometimes we have people who have been employed maybe for 5 years, 6 years, and lose a job. They can always come back and reapply and get assistance for employment. And again, we assist people from all walks of life, regardless of what the disability is, as long as there's medical clearance, and there's an impediment to employment. Okay, there has to be an impediment to. Let's say if a person has one arm, and they were working as an accountant and they lose that job, that to come into us, that's not an impediment. It's not considered an impediment. It has.
Because that was his writing arm? I'm serious. Accountant's got to write.
Let's say if he was already in the field and he used the left arm. Some people are ambidextrous. Coming to us, he has to really establish, unless down through the years he decompensated in some way, and that decompensation is an impediment. Some people come in with very good arguments, and we do work with them, but we don't really turn anyone away. We try to work with everyone, and that's the whole point of as soon as the referral comes in, the supervisor assigns it to a counselor, and the counselor sends out a letter and invites the person in. Our folks, we don't do too much over the phone. We basically invite you in, and we basically sit down and talk it through and basically work it out. Okay? Any other questions? Okay, you were a wonderful group. If you have any questions, I have a few business cards of my own. I'm going to give it to you in the event you forget my name. Mary Anderson, if you happen to call the New Brunswick office, you can refer to me as being the presenter for today. Now also, if you have friends and relatives that you think can benefit from our services, feel free to have them call us as well.
Thank you.
Okay.